Welcome back to Packs and Picks, and welcome to our second sealed deck build video of Legends of the Force. In the previous video, we opened up 6 packs of the set, went through all the cards, and in this video, I'm going to go over with you the deck that I ultimately ended up with. So let's jump right in. The first thing, like I do with any sealed deck build for Star Wars Unlimited, I like to look at my heroes, my leaders, just to see what I have to work with. We did get 2 copies of Obi-Wan, so we've only got 2 heroism leaders this time and 3 villainy ones. So what I like to look at with my leaders is just to see what color combinations that I can't reasonably make. So on the villainy side, we've got 3 different colors here, so we could do any combination of 2 colors for our decks. But over on the heroism side, we're not going to be able to make a red-yellow heroism deck with the heroes that we have. So I like to do this at the beginning of every deck building session in sealed, just so I don't get excited about red yellow heroism as I'm looking through the cards, because I know I just got to write that off from the beginning. So of these leaders, the 2 that stick out to me that I really like the look of are Obi-Wan and Supreme Leader Snoke. So Obi-Wan, we've talked about before, gives an experience token to a unit without an experience token on it. So this is something that's going to stick around. It's a buff that's going to stay with that creature, that unit, for as long as it's on the battlefield. So I really like that permanent upgrade. And then similarly with Supreme Leader Snoke, he's going to give an experience token to a unit, a villainy unit, in the same way. Now his is a little bit more random, so to speak, because he's only giving it to the unit with the most power among villainy units, so you don't get the selection that you do with Obi-Wan. But the trade-off here is Obi-Wan requires you to have the Force token. Supreme Leader Snoke just requires you have some money and villainy units, which you're probably going to have some villainy units in your deck. So these were the 2 that stuck out to me and the 2 directions that I went with when I was looking at the pool for building. So I'll show you what I ultimately started with, which was Supreme Leader Snoke. I thought I was going to go with a villainy deck, and I'll show you what that looks like first. So we're going to go green, and in this deck we're going to do green-yellow. So we're doing Command and Cunning. Set this up right now. And one of the things you'll start to see as I set this up is how low the curve is for this deck, which has its pluses and its minuses. We'll talk about here in a second. The 8th Brother's up here. We'll set you off to the side right now, Snoke. Okay, so this is essentially the basics of the deck that we've got going on right now. So like I mentioned, we've got a really low curve, which is great for Star Wars Unlimited because we want to get those early units out onto the board. And then some other things we have in this build is a lot of consistency. So what I liked when I was looking through the pool, we've got 2 copies of Aurra Sing. So this is a great value unit, 2 costs 1/4 with raid 2, and it's also hidden, so it's most likely going to stick around to get that first attack in for 3 damage on the second turn of the game. So I really liked the 2 copies of Aurra Sing. We also have 2 copies of Shin Hati somewhere around here. There she is. So yeah, we got 2 copies of Shin Hati. So 3 cost 4/2, hidden shielded. So again, most likely going to get around to get at least 1 attack in because of that shield protecting her. So we've got 2 copies of Shin. We've got 2 copies of Knight of Ren. So a really good value card, 3 cost 4/4. It doesn't have any abilities, but it's just really overstated for its cost. So this is most likely going to be beating anything on the ground in those first turns of the game as a 4/4. So 2 copies there. Then on the top end of the curve, we've got 2 copies of the 8th Brother. So 6 cost 5/7 with Ambush. That's also going to be boosting our other units if we use our Force token. So I really liked the consistency of this build. It's something you don't get a lot in Limited or Sealed, where you can expect your games to play out the same way. Most games, like we're going to probably have an Aurra and a Shin Hati in most of our opening hands. We're going to see those in the opening turns. We know we're probably going to draw into an 8th Brother and be able to close out the game with the 8th Brother. Now, some of the things that this deck is lacking, you'll notice down here I've got the events. We don't have a lot of interaction, out-of-hand interaction with our opponent. We've got Precarious Predicament, lets us bounce a unit. We have a copy of It's Worse. I don't really like running this. It's really expensive, but it's one of the few pieces of removal we have for the deck. And then we've got Overpower, a buff effect here. So there's not a lot of interaction out of hand in this build. And also, we only have 3 small space units, so we're very likely going to get outclassed in the space arena. We've got the Mynock Hive Defense Wing and the Forge Starfighter over in space. And then lastly about this deck, there's only 25 cards here, so our card quality drops off pretty quickly in green and yellow. So we're going to have to supplement with some of the neutrals and just some of the other green and yellow cards that maybe we're not too excited about for this build. And also, our top end is really the Eighth Brother. So we're looking to close out the game or get a long-standing advantage early on with this deck because we know we're not going to have any big heavy hitters at the top end of the curve that we can rely on or like push us over the edge. So that's the green-yellow build. I think I really do like this deck, and I would want to try this out, but I think it's not going to be my first choice for this pool. So I'll show you what my first choice for this pool is, and I'll set that up right now. As I mentioned in the beginning, it's going to be Obi-Wan, so we're still going to be in command. But this time we're going to pair it with blue and see what that has to offer for us. All right, so we're going to set up green and blue here. Scoot these over. We got some early drops going over into Heroism. All right, got some of our events. So already you're seeing we've got some more interaction down below. All right, so we've got green, blue, Heroism is the deck we're going to end up in. And some of the things that I like about this deck, we've got a few more Force users in this deck, which is something that Obi-Wan cares about because he's going to be using the Force token, using the Force in order to give experience tokens to our units. So having more Force users is going to be beneficial for triggering Obi-Wan's ability. We do get a little bit more interaction out of hand with the Whirlwind of Power. So we've got give a unit -2/-2, or if we control a Force unit, which, as we talked about, we're going to have more in this deck, we'll give it -3/-3 instead. Other things that I like about this deck that cover some of the gaps we mentioned from the green-yellow build is we do have more space presence, at least more of a nice curve of space units. So we still have the Mynock and the Hive Defense Wing, but then we're also picking up a Medical Frigate, so 4-cost 3/6 that lets us heal. And we've also got the Long Beam Cruiser over here, a 6-cost 6/6 with Restore 1. So just a little bit more beefy space units that we can hold our own over there because in the previous build, we didn't really have a lot of ways to deal with space units if they did show up. And then another fun card that we have access to, the Mythosaur. So this is a big cost creature at the top end of our curve. So if we do get to the really late game, we do have a big beefer that we can drop and hopefully take over the game with. And then just some little bonuses along the way. We've got Axe Woves. He's another one of our rares. So 3-cost 2/2 gets +1/+1 for each upgrade on him. So the first upgrade to the first experience token we put on Axe Woves from Obi-Wan is actually going to bump him up to a 4/4. So nice little synergy there with Axe Woves. We do have to bring in a few of our lower quality cards and our neutrals to make this deck fill out. So we still have that problem that we saw with the green and yellow build. So we've got the Kowakian Monkey Lizard, the Graceful Purgle, just a couple cards that are really filler for us. But we've got a nice, still a low curve here for early turns of the game. And then we have some more stuff going on in the later end of the game. And that's going to be the ultimate version of the deck that I'm going with. Let me know what your thoughts are on these two options. Do you like the green and yellow build better? Do you like the green-blue build better? Is there something else you saw in the pool that's drawing you towards a different build of this sealed pool? Let me know down in the comments and stick around because we've got more Star Wars Unlimited content coming your way. I'll see you soon.